Bapak Muhlisin will be with us.
All right. It seems like Pak Muhlisin is here already, right? Can we start now, Bapak? Dear comedy, Bumila, or maybe Pak Muhlisin, is it possible for us to start now?
Oh, okay. Yes, Bu Indah. Thank you.
Okay. All right then. Okay. Well, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the KOPI conference conducted by Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember. I am Indah Wardiningsi and I will be the moderator for this session. This is our first session with Pak Muhlisin. And today we are honored to have Bapak Muhlisin Rasuki, who will be presenting on a cognitive approach to syllabus design. Before we begin, let me tell you a little bit about our speaker. Dr. Muhlisin Rasuki here is a lecturer in the Department of Languages and Arts, Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember, Indonesia. He earned a bachelor's degree in education from Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember in 2008 and also a master's degree also in education from State University of Malang in 2012. And then he continued his education and master's degree before becoming a full-time lecturer in TESOL and also FLT from the University of Canberra, Australia in 2014. And finally, he completed his doctoral degree in applied linguistics at Curtin University, Perth, Australia in 2020. Dr. Rasuki's research interest lies in primarily in the area of applied linguistics and also cognitive science. So as you can see, Bapak Muhlisin here is a renowned expert in his field, and we are very fortunate to have him with us today. I'm really excited to hear Pak Muhlisin's insight on this topic. Without further ado, please welcome Bapak Muhlisin to the stage. Bapak, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Binda. Thank you for such a nice introductions. And thank you to all audience for staying until this very last talk. Today, I'm going to start earlier from the schedule, but first, let's have a cup of coffee. So don't forget your coffee. All right, okay, so I'm going to talk today about a topic that is already familiar, as Bu Indah has already said. I'm going to talk about syllabus design, but I wish that I can touch about something new, talking about something that is less familiar to all audience. That is, I'm going to discuss the issue of syllabus design from the perspective of cognitive science. So I give the title of this talk as a cognitive approach to syllabus design. All right, okay. I organized the talk this morning as follows. The first is same conceptualization or the same idea of what I mean by syllabus when I'm talking about syllabus in Do you hear me? Sorry, so someone told me that my voice is not that clear. Please give me the signal.
Yes, Bapak. It seems like your connection was unstable and I
All right.
lost you just now, but now I can hear you very well.
All
You
right.
may
Okay.
proceed
So
now. Okay.
very well. And do you also see my screen? No? All right. Okay. Hang on. Hang
You
on.
haven't shared anything yet? Yes.
No, I haven't shared anything. Sorry about that. So this is what we are usually having technical problem when we have it online. So what about now? Is it there?
It is clear, Bapak.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Winda, for confirming. Okay. Where were we? Okay, so I organized the talk today as follows. The first is I will be speaking about 15 to 20 minutes, and afterward we are going to have a discussions about something that is related to this talk. So first, I'm going to give a brief definitions about what a syllabus is, because I want to have the same idea, the same understanding of whatever I mean by a syllabus when we are talking about syllabus in this talk. As you may have known that there are differing definitions in the literature about what a syllabus is. And it is important for us to have the same understanding so that when we are talking about this, we are roughly at the same page. And the second, I will outline the theoretical principles for a cognitive approach to syllabus design. That is, I will try to give some kind of cognitive principles of how a syllabus might be designed in a way that facilitates learning and skill development. And the third one, I want to move to a practical principles. So the practical issues for how to integrate the cognitive principles into the design of a syllabus in a way that can promote learning or student engagement. All right, okay, so let's begin. All right, so I give the definitions of a syllabus as follows. So I give, this is quite a simple definition. So a syllabus, to put it simply, is a document that contains detailed information of a particular course of study and how the course will be run. And there are two key components in a syllabus, and these two key components is what we are going to focus on in this talk. The first component is the pedagogy content, that is the units of instructions, as I mentioned in this talk. Sorry, all right, okay. So two key components, let me repeat. There are two key components in a syllabus. The first is the pedagogy content, or the materials that we are going to teach our students, all right? Or the topics that will be covered in a particular course of instructions. And the terms pedagogic contents or the materials is what I mean here by units of instructions. And I'm going to focus on this in this talk. And the other one that I will focus is their sequence for the entire instructional process. That is the arrangement of the materials in a syllabus itself. All right, so here is an example of the syllabus in line with the definitions that I gave previously. As you can see here, this is the syllabus taken from one of the courses delivered at the University of Adelaide, South Australia. The name of the course is Big Data Fundamentals. as in line with what I have mentioned previously, this syllabus provides quite detailed information, so pretty much detailed information about everything that students need to know about the course. And what I'm going to focus is the unit of instructions. Unit of instructions is the name of the topics or the names of the subjects that students will learn or the course will cover. So here we have a unit of instructions. The first one is web and social networks. And the arrangements of these units from number 1 till number 6 is what we call by sequence of units. And as you may, I will talk about this in a great detail. That is how we can establish these two things, unit of instructions and sequence of instructions, in a way that can facilitate learning and promote student engagement later on for any courses whatsoever. All right, so the key point to consider, I have already explained this in the previous sections. Okay, now let's move on to a cognitive approach to syllabus design. So what differentiates this approach from other purely pedagogic approach is that we are trying to take into account how learning takes place. So we are trying to marry the insight from cognitive science, that is like how the mind works, how the brain processes information in a way that affects learning and skills development, into the design of materials that will be used for instructions that can effectively promote learning or skills development. All right, so we have a series of perspective from that we can take to inform our our positions in developing a syllabus, like is ACTR, that is the cognitive architecture proposed by John Anderson, or Baddeley's memory, Pavio's dual coding theory, and Sweller theory of cognitive load. So there are many perspectives that can contribute to kind of our positions in developing a syllabus. And when I, like what I already mentioned before, a cognitive approach, the key component is that we do not only construct a syllabus intuitively based on what we think is best, but also more importantly is that we are going to take the perspective from empirical research or theories that accounts for how learning takes place by taking into account how the mind processes information. And in this talk, we are going to talk about a series of cognitive systems that regulate information's processings and learning and retentions in the human brain, like attentions. We are going to talk about how attentions can facilitate learning, memory, information encoding and decoding in memory, memory retrieval, memory rehearsal, and the last thing is monitoring. So in the selections, the key point is that in the selections of materials that will be covered in the syllabus, we are trying to expose those that really, maximize or optimize the working of these cognitive skills so that students can absorb or acquire information that is covered in a particular course more effectively. All right, so let's go to the cognitive principles, a little bit of theoretical background for this talk. So we believe that in the field of cognitive science, learning actually happens in a fixed stages. Like here is the diagram for giving a kind of overview of how learning takes place. Consider, for examples, that we teach a particular course, say, for example, foreign language or a particular concept like basic arithmetic, for example. So what we do is that the teacher usually provide explanations about a particular materials or particular concept that students need to learn. And that's what we call input. Okay, so input may be received by the students when they are listening to teachers' explanations, or when they are reading certain materials that cover or that discusses about the materials itself. There's, in other words, input is what the students listen to or read when they are trying to learnings about something. So as I mentioned before, so learning is a kind of information processing. Informations is what students see, for examples, like when we are seeing this diagram on the screen, and the diagram, when we see it, it is first processed in our perceptual system. What I mean by perceptual system, it is our senses. Okay, when we listen to a talk, then we process the talk first, involving our auditory systems, like what we listen to. And then when we see, for example, when we read a tag, then we process the tag through our visual system. And the most important thing is that not everything that students listen to or see will be processed in their mind or brain. And only informations that the students attend to will be processed successfully in their mind or brain, involving the work of system called short-term or working memory. So students might listen to a 1 hour talk, or students might read like 100 pages book, but it is normal for them to miss some points of the talk or some points presented in the books, because attentions cannot work. Attention is limited in nature. So in that case, in that point, is that learning takes place gradually. Attentions can only works on a limited capacity. So it is important for teacher to know that, to keep in mind that students cannot learn everything that they teach, especially when the materials that is being taught is presented to students at the very outset. Okay, so it takes time for students to really process all of the informations, because attention is quite limited in its capacity to process informations. Okay, so after the if some concepts are successfully processed in the student's memory, there is no guarantee that it will be stored in their long-term memory. Sometimes students can understand a concept that is taught by a teacher, but they can forget that at the subsequent meeting, for example. So that is okay. That is okay, because that's how a learning works, okay? And by knowing that it is kind of a normal working mechanisms of how memory works, we can design an instructions that can promote retentions, not only at the level of understanding, but also at the level of sorry about this. Not only at the level of understanding, but also at the level of acquisitions, in a way that anything that students have learned may be recalled, may also be retrieved, so that students can have, kind of strong or consolidated memory about a particular system. Okay, so talk about this. I'm trying to contextualize what I'm talking about today within a larger context of instructions. Usually, here is the place of a syllabus. Usually, when we are designing a particular instructions, okay, we are thinking about the whole things, okay, the materials that we teach. But two key components is that what we are going to teach and when we are going to teach. So this is the things. But when deciding what we are going to teach, the common suggestions that is made in the literature is that we need to start with needs or situational analysis to make sure that the materials that we are teaching are not only important from the perspective of the teacher, but also relevant from the perspective of the students. All right, so everything is important. Okay, so I mean, when we teach particular subject, there are many things that need to be covered, but because of the time constraint, we cannot teach everything. So we need to prioritize materials that are relevant to a particular student at certain level of instructions. And that's why needs or situational analysis becomes very important. And from after conducting needs or situational analysis, usually we can formulate instructional objectives. Okay, and I'm sure it is a common knowledge for teachers. And after formulating instructional objectives, we can then move to the third stage, that is designing a syllabus. And in this stage, we becomes much more specifics about the units of instructions or the contents that will be included in the syllabus that will be taught to students for the whole instructional process. Okay, so it is not enough to only determine a series of materials in the syllabus, but we also need to design or to select appropriate materials that are relevant with the contents that we are going to teach. And this one is informed by a previous one. The selections of instructional materials should be informed by by the units of instructions that have already been established in the syllabus. And of course, the materials need to be thought with appropriate methodology. There are many teaching methodologies, and perhaps certain methodologies are more effective or will be more appropriate for teaching a certain material to achieve target instructional objectives. And of course, after that, after the whole things have been implemented in real instructional practices, that we can deliver a test to measure or to gauge learning outcomes. And the result of the test can be used for evaluations, and the result of the evaluations may be used to think about, to reflect whether the whole process from needs analysis or situational analysis to the test meet the standard that we are expected. Okay, so I hope that this one provides a clear idea about the place of the syllabus within a larger context of instructional design. Now, we go to the practical considerations of how to incorporate cognitive principles in the process of designing a syllabus. Like what I already mentioned, one of the key components in a syllabus is units of instructions or the materials that will be covered. So here, based on the perspective from the field of cognitive science or the cognitive approach, one of the suggestions that is quite common actually is that we should select instruction that is meaningful for students or interesting to the purpose is to induce their attentions. Usually, research has shown that students become much more motivated to learn when they know that they are what they learn is relevant to their real life scenarios. So it is important to really consider conducting needs analysis to make sure that the materials that are covered are not only important from the perspective of the lessons or the course, but also relevant from the perspective of the student itself. So when students feel that it is relevant, it is hoped that they will pay more attention to the materials that are given in a particular course of instructions. So why attention is important? As I already mentioned before, students may listen to everything, they may read everything, but only information that they attend to will get processed and will be learned, will be understood, and will subsequently affect learning. Otherwise, everything that is not attended to will, sometimes there is a proverb here in Indonesia that something may goes to into the left ear and will go out into the right ear. So students do not, the information that they listen to will not get processed in their mind. Okay, now, after units of instructions, after all materials have been determined, then we can go to the sequence. Sometime, to the best of my knowledge, the process of sequencing is usually done abstractly or arbitrarily. So, but from the perspective of cognitive approach, we need to sequence in a particular way so that the processing of the informations or the process of how students learn are promoted or are facilitated. So the first thing that we need to consider is the complexity of the materials. It is quite, like it is quite common. It's a common knowledge for us to know about this, but actually this is quite important and has dominated the field of research in cognitive science about determining simplicity or complexity of certain materials. Why sequencing simple to complex is important? Because this kind of factor can facilitate the processing of target information. Imagine if the students have to learn a complex things first without they first have enough background knowledge about the thing, it will be hard for them to process. It will be hard for them to understand. For example, in the field of, I don't know, like mathematics, for example, or biology, for example, um, but what I'm familiar with, for example, in the case of foreign language teaching and learning, if students do not know, say, for example, like future tense, it is hard for them to learn conditional sentence because the understanding of conditional sentence will need to be built on students' understanding of future tense, for example. So it is important to know about that. Um, One of the suggestions that can be made is that a teacher can sequence the complexity of the target materials a priori, that is by referring to certain theoretical framework, or preferably a posteriori by referring to empirical evidence. Okay, so the other thing is that we need to allow spaced repetition to occur during instructions. Um, the common things that the teacher has done, okay, so far is that they focus on a series of materials that do not allow spaced repetitions. As I mentioned before, when students learn a new concept, they usually, if they successfully understand the concept, it is usually unsuccessfully stored in their long-term memory because of the limitation capacity in their attentions. So in order to be able to help students consolidate their memory about the thing, it is important for students to review, that is by means of meaningful repetitions of the concept, so that, and research has shown that repetition is important for students to really keep the information in their long-term memory. So, oh, sorry, the battery is low. Okay, do you have a charger? Hang on. And there are various activities that may be done to, sorry. So it should be working, okay. All right. And there are many activities that can be done here, including review activities. So it is okay to have a quizzes as well, and the provision of feedback. So meaningful repetition that is usually ignored in the real practice of teaching, actually, if we are aware about this, play a significant role in facilitating memory consolidations, or in other words, in facilitating the remembering of a particular materials that are taught in the classroom. Okay, and now moving on to the last one is the practice in a new context. Imagine that we are teaching basic arithmetics to students, okay? So when we are teaching additions, multiplications, and so on and so forth, for example, or divisions, then we ask students to calculate discount of certain shopping items, for example. Students will not only calculate, will not only be able to apply what they have already learned in learning basic arithmetics, but they are able to apply what they have learned in real life situations. Like, for example, because, calculating the discount of a certain shopping items in Shopee or other things, okay, in e-commerce, usually requires students to do basic arithmetics. And such practice allows the transferability of the informations, what they have already acquired, okay? And with that transferability, students can apply in a various contexts. They will see the relevance of what they learn in their classroom with their real life situations. And also, this transferability plays a very important role in fostering students' critical thinking, problem solving, and decision-making skills. Okay. Now, the last part of this talk is that we are talking about metacognition. It is actually not part of the cognitions, but it is beyond cognitions. What I mean by metacognition here is that it refers to students' ability to monitor and to reflect on their own learning processes. So they are able to see their own progress or the difficulties that they face when learning a particular concepts. When students think about such things, when they think about, like their own progress or the progress that they make when learning a particular something, or when they think about the problems that they usually have when doing a particular things, and it is hope that they can find a solutions to overcome the problems. Otherwise, the problem will be neglected and nothing will be done about it. And instructions can help students to do this by asking students to write, for example, a learning journal, okay, to monitor their own progress, or teacher may ask students to complete quizzes or tests. And the purpose of these quizzes or tests is not to assess students' performance, but to provide them with opportunity to see what they have already mastered or what they haven't mastered yet. And also, from a student's performance on the quizzes or tests, the teacher can provide feedback and ask the students to review the feedback from the teacher to allow them to see what they can revise. What they can change based on the feedback given by the teacher. So in conclusions, a cognitive approach based on what I have presented, I hope that the takeaway from this talk is that a cognitive approach is a practical, I think that is really applicable to be integrated into syllabus design. Maybe it does not talk about the formatting of the syllabus itself, but it provides a clear guideline of how certain materials may be selected or may be developed, and how the materials may be sequenced or arranged so that it can facilitate learning, information processing, and by implications, student engagement in learning. Thank you. Okay, back to Bu Indah.
Thank you for the insightful presentation, Pak Muhlisin. Now we will open up the floor to questions from the audience. Please raise your hand if you have a question, or you can simply type the questions in the chat box and I will read it for Pak Muhlisin. Okay, while waiting for the audience to ask questions, Bapak, I was wondering, because that one is really interesting, and I have something to ask you actually.
Okay, let's start it, Bu Indah.
Yeah, Bapak. So how might teachers need to adopt their teaching methods to implement this approach effectively?
Sorry, could you please repeat?
Okay, how might teachers and other educators need to adapt their teaching method to implement this approach effectively?
Okay, that's a really good question and really important question to consider to make this or to translate this idea into real practice. Okay, I think that Bu Indah is an expert in her own teaching. I mean, teacher is the expert in the classroom. I mean, like such someone like myself should be left to the teacher. But I may give a suggestions for the teacher of how to implement or how to translate this idea into real classroom practice. One is that the teacher should get updated with the informations provided in the field of cognitive science, because cognitive science is all about learning, is all about knowledge development, is all about information processing that is regulated by the brain. Believe it or not, all learning takes place in the brain. That's the first thing that we need to keep in mind. Sometimes people think that learning can occur on, other other part of human body, but actually it happens in the brain. That's all about. So in order that the teacher can translate the principles from the idea from cognitive science, they need to know what the insight can they take from the field of cognitive science. There is no best practice. There is no one size fit all solution to this, because in real practice, each classroom is unique, and each classroom can be different from other classroom. And it is the teacher's creativity that will play a role in the success of integrating this one. So the point that I'm trying to make is that I will not be able to specify certain methodology for teaching, Bu Indah. I will not be able to provide some kind of prescriptions of how to teach students in a certain classroom, but this one should allow the teacher on, for example, on providing how to select the materials or how to sequence the materials in order to optimize students' attentions and processing of the informations. Whether the student can successfully attend to a particular concepts or topic that is taught in the classroom will surely depend on a lot of factors, such as, for example, their uh, motivations, their interests, their aptitude, for example, and many other things. But we hope that given a certain conditions, if we apply the instruction based on this insight, students who might fail to understand the concept taught in the classroom may to some extent be more successful in learning that, because the selection of the materials, the arrangements of the materials are designed, are established based on how they are likely to process the materials in their memory. I hope that answered your questions. I find your questions difficult to answer because I'm not an expert in teaching methodology. I cannot provide a prescriptions or prescriptions of how to teach students in real classroom. But that's the best thing that I can do is to help teachers rather than designing certain instruction arbitrarily, but they can design the instructions based on insights from empirical research on how they can really optimize the instruction itself. All right. Okay. Thank you. Does it
Yeah.
answer your questions, or perhaps you want to add something about that?
No, but your explanation was quite clear. And then we also have another question here. The first one is from Sharifa. She's asking whether this cognitive approach to the syllabus design is relevant for content subject courses only and not for the skill. So, is it applicable for the content subject only, or
Okay.
it can also be applicable for the skill?
Okay, there's a really nice questions. There's a really good one. The first thing, the simple answer is it is relevant for both. Okay, so that's a simple answer. But perhaps you want to know why I said so. Well, actually, usually from pedagogic perspective, we usually differentiate the classes in terms whether it is concerned with the content or whether it is concerned with skills. But actually both of the, and when we talk about that, we usually have differentiations between some kind called declarative knowledge or procedural knowledge. But actually both of them are knowledge, only that they are different in terms of the operations in the human brain. For example, let's say that we are teaching grammar, or we are teaching linguistics. It is a kind of a content subject because it primarily concerns with what what students should know after completing the lessons. It should be different from when we teach pronunciations or speaking or reading, because it primarily concerns with skills. That is what students are expected to be able to do after completing the lessons. But actually, students' knowledge, like the knowledge about a grammar or the knowledge about particular subjects in linguistics, are also regulated by memory, their memory. Okay, and students' ability to perform speakings in a particular context is also regulated by their memory. Okay, let's say that, for example, students have to be able to speak in a front of public about a particular topic. From the perspective of this approach, is that students will not be able to do instantly. They will need to practice over and over again in order to be able to do satisfactorily. In other words, their memory will process the skills, okay, before it can affect their performance. Sometimes we call declarative memory, that is the knowledge of how to do something. So this idea from the cognitive approach can inform the instruction that focus on the content and those that focus on skills. So I hope that answer your questions. So it is really applicable for both.
Okay, Sharifa, I hope that answers the question. So it is actually applicable for both content and also skill. We have another participant raising his hands. I have Angi Aminullah. Hello, Angi, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you may ask the questions directly to Muhlisin.
Ma'am. And then thank you for the explanation of syllabus from Mr. Muhlisin. And then I want to ask, and then for the first, in my experience, in every course, it is will be same in every years. For example, first material is descriptive text, and then the second procedure text, and then how about and then my questions, how about the material will be rolling? It is for the first um, procedure text, and then the second course is descriptive text. For my experience, the student understand the material from upper class, so the student not feel like interesting for the material, because the, in our class there is no from upper class. However, that it is possible to roll the course or material. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Anggi. Pak Muhlisin?
Okay, thank you. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Everything is possible, Angi. Okay, I think that the right questions is whether it is effective to do so. Because in terms of possibility, yes, it is possible. It is up to the teacher to do as they wish, for example. But whether it is the good one, whether it will, if it will be effective to facilitate students' learning. One of the suggestions that I can make in this case is that it, in constructing a syllabus from pedagogic standpoint, not from a cognitive standpoint, is that we differentiate between bottom up and top down. Okay, it is the top down. It is what the teacher impose on the students without hearing their aspirations, and the second one is the bottom up. We try to accommodate students' voices in constructing the syllabus itself. That is the guideline for the instructions. In that case, if the students find that the instruction is pretty boring because it is kind of just verbatim repetition from the previous year, perhaps the teacher can listen to what students really want to learn. And that is one way. And it is hoped that if the students' voices are accommodated by the teacher it is the students will become more committed. Because yes, back to on how the syllabus
I'm really sorry. It seems like we lost Pak Muhlisin, but I'm sure that he will be right back here. And we'll be waiting for the committee to handle the technical problem. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, Bapak Ibu.
ada masih. All right, so here I am. Sorry, the signal goes on and off. Okay, is unstable. Okay, so Bu Indah, I think that answers Angie's questions. I hope that the key point of my answer is successfully broadcasted, although the signal is unstable. It just keeps on going on and off. Sorry about this, but nothing I can do about this. It's a just technical problem. Okay, do we have more questions or?
Okay, well, actually, Bapak, we have one more questions, but we have a very limited time here. It's 9 already.
All right,
so
okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, sure.
So I think we have to wrap up our discussion here. Thank you, Bapak, for your enlightening presentation and insightful answers to the questions. Unfortunately,
Thank you, Bu Indah. Thank you. It's a
yes,
pleasure.
yes, unfortunately, we are running low on time, so we'll have to wrap up the question and answer sessions here. And I'm sure that the audience will be able to connect with you later for any further questions they might have. And to summarize, in your presentation, Bapak Muhlisin discussed on how a cognitive approach can be applied to the design of a syllabus. And then he also highlighted the importance of considering the learner's cognitive skills and development when designing the syllabus. Pak Muhlisin emphasized the need for a syllabus design that takes into account the units of instructions and their sequence of presentations. Overall, Pak Muhlisin's presentations provided a valuable insights into how a cognitive approach can be applied to syllabus design to promote effective learning outcomes. So, all right, that concludes our session. On behalf of the organizing committee of the KOPI conference, I would like to thank Bapak Muhlisin for his valuable contribution. Thank you, Bapak, for sharing your expertise with us today. We truly appreciate your contribution to the sessions. And I would also like to thank the audience for their engagement and insightful questions. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.